guys, welcome again to another exciting tutorial with me, Romy Fauzi, on how to create a 2D platformer, but this one is sprite based. And we are going to continue where we left off. And in this episode, I'm going to show you how to create a one-way platform and then also a moving platform. So let's jump to it. So now we are going to create a one-way platform. In order to do that, I'm going to go to the prefabs folder and choose the floating platform and drag this prefabs to our scene. And with this method, we have to make sure that the length of the raycast pointing upwards and the position of this floating platforms doesn't really collides when he walks. So I'm going to show you what I mean with that. I'm going to change the position, the Y position for the floating platform to 1. Then I'm going to add a edge collider. And for this edge collider, I'm going to move the endpoint and also the start point to around this position. And for the character, I'm going to add a new FSM. And I'm going to change this FSM to a check platform above the name, so it's quite clear. And for the first state, I'm going to set the name to raycast up. Here I'm going to drag both of this box and box collider to our state and choose set property, and for the property I'm going to choose enable. And then I'm also going to drag this circle collider to the state and choose the set property, also set the property enabled and check the enabled. So I'm going to enable the collider here, and I'm going to add a raycast 2D, and then I'm going to add a variable called ground obj and change this variable type to game object. Okay, under events, I'm going to add a event called next, and then for the distance, I'm going to change this to 1.9, and the direction, I'm going to uncheck the use parameter and set the Y direction to 1, the value and the Y direction. And then under the store hit object, I'm going to choose that variable we have just created before. And for the layer mask, as usual, I'm going to set the value to 1, and then I'm going to choose the default layer. So I'm going to check the debug so I can see the length of the raycast. Also, I'm going to add another action, which is a game object compare tag here, and then change this to ground, the tag, and then under true, I'm going to use the next event and check every frame. Under raycast up, add that transition next, and then I'm going to add a new state. I'm going to connect that transition to our new state, and for this our new state, I'm going to name it disable collider. So I'm going to copy this two set of action, copy selected action, then I'm going to paste that action here, and then I'm going to disable by uncheck the enabled option. I'm going to disable the collider, and then I'm going to add a finish transition, and then I'm going to add a new state here, and for this new state I'm going to name it reset game object obj variable. So here just connect the finished, and then I'm going to add a set game object and choose that ground object and set that to none, and then I'm going to add also a wait action, and I'm going to give this a very short time, so maybe around 0.05, and check the real time. Add finish transition, and then drag this finish transition back to raycast. So why I've added a wait action, because here we are going to disable collider, and upon jumping, if the character detects the raycast upwards detect another ground like this, maybe floating ground, it will disable this collider, right? And then on the next stage it will going to reset the ground obj, so we have so the ground object will not contain any game object, and then we are going to add wait before we are going to enable back our collider, the character collider, so we can go through the ground here. So I'm going to make sure what's wrong with this. Okay, ground, we haven't set the game object. I'm going to check the use parameter and then use ground object. So let's see if it's working, but before that, please make sure that your value of the circle collider is 0.35 off, if you want to make sure of it, just zoom it, and then make sure that the player pivot point, if you select the player, you will see the pivot point of the player is inside the collider. So make sure it's not outside, or maybe the collider, the pivot is not inside the collider. So make sure the condition is like this. Okay, so let's see if it's working. So as you can see, we have a platform, and if we go up, it will disable the collider for very short time, and it will enable it back again, so we can land on that platform. So if we jump there, as you can see, it jumped nicely. Oh, there's one bit problem. Okay, I'm going to see. Oh, I don't know, maybe it's a glitch. Just make sure that the wait time is very low, or perhaps make it even lower than before, maybe around 0.025. And here, as you can see, it's working nicely. And if it doesn't grab the platform, it will nicely go back to the ground. So I think it's working right now. And if you have any bug, just make sure that the ground is quite high, or make the jump strength stronger so it can jump higher, and make sure that the wait time is quite low. So with the moving platform, we are going to use the same prefabs. Here I'm going to drag this prefab here, and then I'm going to put the ground, maybe I'm going to give it a space so the character will need to jump to go to this floating platform. And then I'm going to add a edge collider also. Then I'm going to position the line just like what we did before. I'm sorry, I've scaled the object, and then I'm going to, yeah, so, and then I'm going to add a FSM, and I'm going to name this FSM a moving platform. So I'm going to create the animation procedurally using an FSM, and for the first state I'm going to set the platform to go right, and then I'm going to create another state. Oh, sorry, I'm going to copy the state later, so I'm going to set the go right first, and then I'm going to add the variables move platform speed, and then I'm going to also add a wait time. So this is the speed of the platform movement, and this is the time for which if we reach that time, then the platform will go back to another direction. So, and I'm going to make sure this both variable are shown in the inspector, so we can change that value there for the easiness of it. Is that even a word, easiness? I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to add a translate action, and for this translate action I'm going to make sure that per second is checked and every frame is checked. And then also I'm going to change the X value to our move platform speed, and because this is the go right state, I'm going to add a float absolute action on top of it, and then I'm going to make sure that the variable, our variable, stay positive. And then I'm going to use a wait action to change the direction later. So I'm going to use this wait time variable on finish event. I'm going to add a finish action. So on finish event I'm going to use finish and check this real time. And for this action I'm going to copy the action, copy state, and then I'm going to paste the state. No, I'm not going to replace the start state. And from finish this I'm going to the second state, and for the second state I'm going to change this to go left. And then I'm going to add another action which is float multiply, and then I'm going to drag this to the top stack or move it to the stack above, and then I'm going to delete the float apps action. And for the float multiply I'm going to add the move platform speed, and then I'm going to multiply it by -1. And under wait I'm going to this is already set for us, and this is already set for us before, so I'm going to drag back to go right. So we have a moving platform here, and I'm going to add a speed of 1.5 for the move platform speed, and the wait time maybe to around 3 seconds. So I'm going to save the scene, and then I'm going to give the moving platform to a moving platform tag. If you don't have this tag, just click add tag and type the tag you need, which is moving platform, or any other tag. Just make sure that you remember the tag name, and then I'm going to rename this to a moving platform. Okay, so I think that will be all. And then for the player, we are not going to create a new FSM, but we are going the one we have already. We are going to use the jump action. So I'm going to save the scene again, and here under check landing I'm going to copy the game object compare tag. So we have two different game object compare tag, and the first one we are going to compare against the tag ground, and the second one we are going to compare against the moving platform tag. And then I'm going to add another events we have already created before, on landing, sorry. I'm going to land on moving platform, so just create a new event. And then for the second one I'm going to add that transition land on moving platform, and for the game object compare, the second game object compare tag, I'm going to change the true event to land on moving platform. So we already changed, we already set the true event also. Create another state, and then set this parent to moving platform. So we have a variable here, the ground object, right? And then just drag this to here, and under parent to moving platform we are going to use that variable. So I'm going to use the action set parent, and then set the parent to ground object and add a transition finish. And for the finish, I'm going to drag this to our first state under finish. So, and one thing we have to do before we test this out, I'm going to copy the set parent, copy the selected action, and then I'm going to paste this to jumping to the top, and then I'm going to make sure this back to none upon jumping. So let's see if it's already working. Okay, there we have the moving platform, and it will go loop the movement ever, and I'm going to jump. There, as you can see, we already parented, because we can see that the player is inside the moving platform now. And if we jump, the player will go back to the world. So there, it's working nicely. Well, I think this is a better method using raycast, and for the moving platform, I think it's also applicable for our 3D ones, the previous tutorial. So I think you can make changes for that also, for maybe for you guys who have already tried my tutorials before. Just make sure that you are using a raycast object instead of raycast 2D, because the 3D ones need another action, which is a raycast. I'm going to show you here. This one, make sure to use this one instead of raycast 2D. So that will be all. I hope this tutorial is clear enough, and if you have any question, just fire away. Just write the comment below, and if you like this tutorial, please subscribe. Okay, see you in another series of the tutorials. Thanks for watching.